How did a single forgotten phone expose what my family thought I would never see? They mocked my grief, hid it behind jokes and smiles, and assumed I was too quiet to notice. What they didn't know was that one notification would turn their private cruelty into a public reckoning. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. The phone sat on my kitchen counter like a live wire I didn't know how to safely disconnect. Lena had left it there after lunch, probably distracted by whatever new trend she was chasing on social media. My daughter-in-law always moved through my house like she owned it, leaving traces of her presence everywhere, expensive perfume lingering in the air, designer bags tossed on my furniture, and now this. Her phone, screen facing up, notifications lighting up the darkened glass. I should have ignored it. Should have just called Victor and told him to come get it. But then the screen lit up again, and I saw my mother's face. The photo was from her last birthday, 3 months before she passed. She was smiling in that gentle way she had, holding the cake I'd made for her. Someone had cropped me out of the picture. The notification preview showed a message from Victor to Lena. "Did you see his face when we brought up Mom? Like we're supposed to mourn forever." My hand trembled as I picked up the phone. The screen unlocked. Lena never bothered with passcodes for convenience, and I saw the full conversation. Lena: "Your dad is literally background noise. He just sits there with that sad face." Victor: "I know. It's been 6 months. Time to move on." Lena: "6 months and he still keeps her stuff everywhere. It's creepy." Victor: "He's always been too sensitive. Mom used to say the same thing." That last line cut deeper than the rest. My late wife had never said that. She'd understood grief, understood love, understood that some losses don't heal on other people's timelines. I scrolled up, my stomach turning with each message. This wasn't new. This conversation had been going on for weeks, maybe months. Screenshots of me at family dinners, captioned with mockery, jokes about my old-fashioned values, plans to minimize my involvement in family events because I was too much of a downer. The front door opened. I put the phone back on the counter, screen down, and stepped into the living room. Victor and Lena walked in, her laughter echoing off the walls. "Dad, Lena forgot her phone," Victor said, moving past me toward the kitchen. I watched him grab it, watched Lena check her notifications with that casual entitlement she wore like a second skin. She glanced at me, and for a moment, I wondered if she could see it on my face. The knowledge, the hurt, the rage building beneath my calm exterior. "Thanks for keeping it safe," she said, her tone suggesting I'd done the bare minimum expected of me. They stayed for dinner because that's what we did on Sundays. Victor had requested my mother's recipe for pot roast, the one she'd taught me when I was barely tall enough to reach the stove. I made it perfectly, the way she'd shown me, the way I'd been making it for 30 years at the thermal insulation plant's company events. Lena picked at her food. "It's a little heavy for my diet," she announced, pushing vegetables around her plate. "Victor, we should really start eating cleaner." "It's good, Dad," Victor said, but he didn't meet my eyes. They talked about their upcoming vacation, about Lena's new business venture selling wellness products, about everything except the woman whose recipe filled their plates. When Victor mentioned needing to borrow the truck for moving some furniture, I simply nodded. "You're so quiet tonight," Lena observed, that false concern dripping from her voice. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said. After they left, I sat in my mother's chair, the one Lena had once suggested I donate, and stared at my own phone. The group chat was active. Lena had posted a photo of the dinner table, captioning it, "Sunday dinner with the fam, thou blessed how family." I wasn't in the photo. The comments rolled in from relatives I'd helped over the years. Heart emojis. "Beautiful!" "So sweet." My phone buzzed with a message from Lena. "Thanks for dinner. Victor says you're lending us the truck tomorrow? I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a new folder and saved a screenshot of the message. Then I went back to her forgotten phone, still open in my recent apps, and captured everything I'd seen. My hands were steady. The hurt was still there, deep and dull, but something else had joined it. Something cold. Organized. At 2 a.m., the phone buzzed again. I was still at the kitchen table, notebook open, writing down dates and details that had returned with sharp clarity. Dismissed contributions, forgotten birthdays, every time I'd been needed and never thanked. The message was from a friend. Did you see that old guy at the store? Reminded me of your FIL, just standing there looking confused, LOL. Lena replied almost instantly, OMG stop. But yeah, totally him. Free childcare and free storage, zero personality. They didn't even have children yet. Free childcare was a future assumption, one they'd already decided I'd fulfill. I saved the screenshots and placed her phone in a drawer. Tomorrow, I'd return it with a smile. Tonight, I had work to do. Here's a tightened version that keeps the character grounding, escalation, and documentation theme while trimming repetition. The factory floor at Continental Thermal Systems hummed with its familiar rhythm. Machines cycling, conveyors moving in steady intervals, the low vibration that settled into your bones after a few hours. I'd been here 23 years, long enough that the sound no longer registered as noise, only as reassurance. I'd started as a line supervisor straight out of my 20s, worked my way up slowly, deliberately, until I became a production administrator. It wasn't flashy work, but it mattered. People trusted me with systems, tolerances, and quality approvals that could affect contracts worth millions. One mistake could ripple outward. I never made those mistakes. Damon, I need your eyes on the new insulation specs, Caleb Monroe called from across the office. Caleb was the closest thing I had to a friend here. Quiet, methodical, the kind of man who believed competence spoke louder than personality. He didn't waste words, and he didn't waste trust. I took the documents from him and reviewed them carefully, line by line. Material density, heat resistance, supplier tolerances. Everything aligned exactly as it should. No red flags, no shortcuts. I signed off, initialed the page, and handed it back before returning to my desk. There, as always, sat the framed photo of my mother. It had followed me through 3 office moves and 1 promotion. She was smiling in it, the kind of smile that came from relief as much as pride. She'd been proud of this job, proud that I'd built a life out of steady, reliable work, proud that I showed up every day and did what I said I would. You okay? Caleb asked a little later, setting down 2 coffees without asking. You seem distracted. Family stuff, I said. He nodded once, no follow-up questions. Then document everything, he said calmly. If it matters, write it down. The advice stayed with me longer than he probably intended. At lunch, instead of eating at my desk, I drove to the park where my mother used to take me when I was a kid. It hadn't changed much. The old oak tree still stood at the center, its branches spread wide and uneven, casting the same shade they always had. I sat on the same bench we used to share, close enough that I could still picture her beside me. She used to talk about respect there, about responsibility, about family taking care of each other, even when it wasn't convenient. She'd raised me alone after my father left, working 2 jobs and stretching every dollar until it barely held. When she got older, I'd stepped in without hesitation. I drove her to appointments, paid bills she couldn't, made sure she never felt like a burden. That was family, too sensitive, old-fashioned. Victor's words echoed in my head, exactly as he'd said them. I pulled out my notebook and began writing. Not emotionally, not dramatically. Just facts, dates, numbers, actions, everything I'd done for Victor and Lena over the past 3 years. The apartment down payment, $15,000 scraped together from overtime. We'll pay you back, Victor had said at the time. They never did. I never asked. The co-signed car loan, the accident 6 months later, the insurance rates that never went back down, every Sunday dinner, every holiday obligation, every ride when their schedules didn't line up, every storage favor, every time they needed reassurance, approval, or someone to quietly fix things behind the scenes. I'd been reliable, and they'd turned that reliability into something expected, even mocked. My phone rang. Victor. "Hey, Dad, can we get the truck tonight?" he said. "Lena wants to start moving early." "I'm using it for work tomorrow," I replied. "Tuesday." There was a pause, not confusion, calculation. "Seriously? We already scheduled everything." "I have a delivery to supervise," I said evenly. "Rent one for a day." "Why are you being difficult?" "I'm not," I said. "I'm telling you when the truck is available." He hung up. I stayed at the park another hour, continuing the list. Time I'd taken off work to help them move. Furniture from my mother's house, the dining set Lena later dismissed as too dated. Long nights assembling things Victor bought because he wasn't handy. Every small obligation that added up into something much larger. That evening, a message appeared in the family group chat. Lena. When family doesn't come through, you learn who your real support system is. Her friends responded with sympathy almost immediately. Victor's sister asked what had happened. Lena replied, "Some people are stuck in their ways. You can't expect everyone to be flexible." I didn't respond. I didn't explain. I took screenshots, labeled them, added them to the folder on my computer, and went to bed. The record was getting clearer, and so was I. The apartment building Victor and Lena lived in was one of those modern complexes. Gray walls, clean lines, trendy fixtures meant to suggest stability and success. I'd helped them get approved for it, vouching for their reliability to the landlord, a man I knew from community business networking events. My word had carried weight. It always had. I stood outside their door with Lena's phone, listening to their voices inside. They were arguing about something, voices rising and falling behind the thin walls. When Victor opened the door, his expression was guarded. "Hey, Dad. Lena left this at my place." I held out the phone. "Oh, thanks." He took it, but didn't invite me in. "Listen, about the truck thing. We figured it out. Got a rental." "Good. You could have just—" He stopped, shaking his head. "Never mind." Through the doorway, I could see Lena on their couch, scrolling through her tablet. The antique dining set from my mother's house sat in their storage closet, visible through a half-open door, still boxed up, still unwanted. "Is there something else?" Victor asked. "No," I said. "Just wanted to return the phone." He started to close the door, then paused. "Dad, are you upset about something? Because you've been acting weird." "I'm fine," I said. "Just busy with work." The door clicked shut. I heard Lena's voice rise. "Did he say anything?" I walked back to my truck and sat there for a moment, watching their window. The folder on my phone now contained 43 screenshots, each one dated and categorized. Messages about my grief, messages about my mother, messages about how I was free labor and convenient when needed. At the cafe downtown, I ordered coffee and spread my notes across the corner table. The financial support was easier to track than I'd expected. Bank statements showed every transfer, every check, every time I'd covered their shortfall. $18,000 over 3 years, not counting the gifts. My mother had left me her house and a small savings account. Nothing extravagant, but enough to live comfortably if I was careful. Victor knew about the inheritance. He'd asked about it once, casually, wondering if I'd thought about helping them get started in life. I'd given him the down payment money instead of answering. Now I pulled out the folder I'd started at home. Inside were copies of receipts, printed bank statements, and a handwritten log of every favor, every act of support, every time I'd been convenient. The words from their messages echoed in my head: free childcare and free storage. The cafe door opened and Caleb walked in, spotting me immediately. He sat down without asking, his eyes taking in the papers spread before me. "That bad?" he asked. "Worse. What are you going to do?" I gathered the papers into neat stacks. "I'm going to stop being convenient." He nodded slowly. "Document everything. Whatever you're planning, make sure you can prove it." "I am." "And Damon?" He waited until I looked up. "Don't do anything you can't take back, but also, don't let anyone treat you like you don't matter." After he left, I opened my phone and checked the family group chat. Lena had posted a photo of herself at a spa, caption reading, "Self-care Sunday because some weeks are just exhausting. Wellness, me time, grateful." Victor had commented, "You deserve it, babe." I opened Victor's profile and scrolled back through months of posts. Dozens of photos, parties, restaurants, weekend trips. I appeared in exactly 3 of them, always in the background, always cropped at the edge. One photo from my birthday last year showed them at my house. The caption read, "Family dinner." My mother had been alive then. She'd baked my favorite cake. She wasn't in the photo. Neither was I. The comments were full of people I'd known for years. Beautiful couple. So blessed. Family goals. I saved the photo and added it to my folder. Then I pulled out a business card I'd kept in my wallet for 6 years. Nora Feld, attorney. She'd handled my mother's estate and told me to call if I ever needed anything. The phone rang twice. "Nora, it's Damon Torin. I need to talk to you about family law and reputational liability." "How soon can you come in?" "Tomorrow morning." 8 a.m.? "I'll be there." That night, I went through my mother's boxes, the ones in the spare bedroom Lena had called creepy. Inside were photo albums, letters she'd written me, cards I'd sent from business trips, a record of real affection, real respect. I found a letter she'd written after my wife passed away, before she became ill herself. In her careful handwriting, "Grief is not weakness, Damon. It's proof you loved deeply. Don't let anyone take that from you." I photographed the letter and added it to the folder. The record was no longer just about what they'd done to me. It was about what I was no longer willing to let them erase. Nora Feld's office was in one of those converted historic buildings downtown, all exposed brick and tall windows. She met me in the conference room with coffee already brewing and a legal pad ready. "Tell me everything," she said. I laid out the screenshots, the financial records, the timeline of disrespect. I explained about my mother, about the messages mocking my grief, about being called background noise and free storage. She listened without interrupting, making notes in precise handwriting. When I finished, she sat back and studied me with the sharp assessment of someone who'd seen too many cases like mine. "What outcome are you looking for?" she asked. "I want them to understand that I'm not convenient anymore. I want consequences for how they've treated me in my mother's memory." Legally, you have several options. The co-signed loan gives you leverage. The financial support without written agreements is harder, but we can position it as part of a pattern. The screenshots demonstrate ongoing harassment and defamation, especially regarding your character and your late mother. She pulled out a thick folder. "Here's what we can do. First, document everything going forward. Every interaction, every request, every message. Second, we formalize the termination of financial support with written notice. Third, we prepare a statement outlining the pattern of behavior and its impact on your reputation. And then? Then we wait for the right moment. Public revelation works best when they're least prepared for it." She leaned forward. "But Damon, you need to be sure. Once you do this, there's no going back. Family relationships will be permanently changed." "They already changed them," I said. "I'm just making it official." We spent 3 hours going through everything. Nora helped me organize the evidence into categories: financial, emotional, reputational. She explained how civil harassment laws worked, how documentation could protect me from claims of abandonment or elder abuse if Victor tried to retaliate legally. "Do they have any major events coming up?" she asked. "Anything public?" "Lena is planning a big family celebration for her 30th birthday next month. She's been talking about it for weeks, invited half the city. It's at the event hall on Riverside." Nora's smile was sharp. Perfect. Over the next 2 weeks, I followed her instructions precisely. I logged every interaction, every message, every time they called asking for help. I said yes to nothing and no to everything, each refusal documented with date and time. Victor called me at work one afternoon, his voice tight with frustration. "Dad, what's going on? You're acting completely different." "I'm just focusing on my own life," I said. "Lena thinks you're mad about something." "I'm not mad." "Then why won't you help us move the couch this weekend? You have a truck." "Because I'm busy." "Busy doing what? You never have plans." That stung, but I kept my voice level. "I have plans now." He hung up. 10 minutes later, a message appeared in the family group chat from Lena. "It's sad when older people become selfish. Guess we're on our own for everything now." I screenshot it, added it to the folder, and went back to work. At the plant, I'd been watching how our management handled presentations during quarterly reviews. They used facts, kept emotions controlled, stated conclusions without embellishment. I started practicing in the empty conference room during lunch breaks, running through my evidence like it was a production report. Caleb walked in on me once, saw the slides I'd prepared on my laptop, and whistled low. "You're really doing this." "I'm really doing this." "Need a witness?" "To what?" "To the fact that you're one of the most reliable, competent people I know. That you don't deserve whatever this is." I saved his offer in my notes. The automatic payments I'd set up for Victor's car loan, the one he'd never paid me back for, stopped without warning. He called that evening, panicked. "Dad, the bank says you canceled the automatic payment. That's going to mess up our credit." The loan was meant to be temporary help. 3 years is long enough. "You can't just stop without warning. I sent you an email 2 weeks ago. It's your loan now. We can't afford the full payment. Then you'll need to refinance or sell the car. That's not my problem anymore." The silence on the other end was heavy with disbelief. Victor had never heard me draw a line before. "What is wrong with you?" he finally asked. "Nothing's wrong. I'm just done being convenient." I hung up and marked it in my log. Nora had prepared all the paperwork. The notifications were legal, documented, irreversible. That Sunday, they didn't come for dinner. The house felt empty without their chaos, but also peaceful in a way it hadn't been for years. I made my mother's pot roast anyway, eating alone at the table where she used to sit. My phone buzzed with messages from extended family. Lena had been busy painting a picture. "Damon's going through something. He's cutting us off. We're worried about him. Please check in." Concerned cousins called. Worried aunts texted. I responded to each one with the same message. "I'm fine. Just making some changes in my life. Thank you for checking." None of them asked what changes. None of them questioned Lena's narrative. The invitation to her birthday celebration arrived by mail. Expensive cardstock with embossed lettering. A public event at the Riverside Event Hall. Catered dinner. Open bar. Celebration of family and friendship. I RSVP'd. Yes. The morning of Lena's birthday celebration, I woke up at 5 a.m. and reviewed everything one final time. Nora had arranged for a digital presentation system. Clean, professional, impossible to ignore. The venue had screens in the main hall, typically used for photo slideshows and toasts. "You're sure about this?" she asked when I met her at her office at 6:30. "I'm sure. Once you start, there's no stopping. Are you prepared for the fallout?" I thought about my mother, about the photo they'd cropped me out of, about being called background noise in my own family. I'm prepared. The folder was complete now, 63 screenshots, detailed financial records, witness statements from Caleb and two other co-workers who'd heard Victor complain about me being too emotional, and a timeline that showed 3 years of escalating disrespect. At home, I dressed carefully, not my usual casual clothes, but the suit I wore to company presentations, professional, credible, calm. The truck I'd refused to lend them so many times was parked in my driveway. I'd had it professionally detailed. My mother's rosary hung from the rearview mirror, the one Lena had once asked me to remove because it was depressing. I drove to the venue early, watching guests arrive in their celebration clothes. Family members I'd helped over the years, friends of Victor and Lena, who knew me only as the quiet father-in-law. They laughed and took photos, phones already out and recording their perfect evening. Lena had spared no expense. The hall was decorated with photos of her and Victor, blown up to poster size. A timeline of their relationship covered one wall. I appeared in exactly 2 photos, both times partially cut off at the edge. Victor spotted me near the entrance and approached, his expression wary. "Dad, didn't think you'd actually come." "It's a family celebration," I said. "Yeah, well." He shifted uncomfortably. "Lena wasn't sure you'd show up. You've been so distant lately." "I'm here now." Lena swept past in an expensive dress, surrounded by friends. She glanced at me, surprise flickering across her face, then turned away without acknowledgement. A photographer captured the moment, her dismissive turn, my calm observation. The DJ announced dinner. Everyone found their seats. I sat at a table near the back, the one marked Extended Family. Victor and Lena held court at the center, faces glowing with attention and champagne. After dinner came the toasts. Lena's mother spoke about her daughter's accomplishments. Victor's sister talked about their love story. Friends shared funny anecdotes and heartfelt wishes. Then the DJ called for any other family members who'd like to share words. I stood up. The room quieted. Victor looked confused. Lena looked alarmed. I walked to the small stage area where the microphone waited, where the screens displayed happy photos on rotation. "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice steady. "I'm Damon Torin, Victor's father. I wanted to share something important on this special occasion." Phones came out, pointed at the stage. People smiled, expecting a sentimental father's speech. "Family is supposed to be built on respect," I said, "on love, on supporting each other through grief and joy. My mother taught me that. She passed away 7 months ago, and her memory deserves better than what it's received." The room shifted. Smiles became uncertain. Lena's face went pale. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the venue's display system. The first screenshot appeared on the screens around the hall. "This is a conversation between my son and daughter-in-law from the day of my mother's funeral." My voice remained calm, factual. They discussed how I was background noise and needed to move on from grief. The image was clear. The words were undeniable. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Here's another, from 3 weeks ago, joking about using me as free childcare and free storage while contributing nothing meaningful to our relationship. Another screenshot. More gasps. Someone's phone camera flashed. I continued methodically, displaying 6 months of documented cruelty. Each message showed the date, the context, the pattern of disrespect. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't embellish. I simply let their own words speak. I supported them financially for 3 years, $18,000 in direct support, plus the co-signed loans and gifts. The financial records appeared on screen, each transaction highlighted. I was told this was temporary help. I was told they'd pay it back. Instead, I was mocked for being too sensitive and old-fashioned. Victor stood up, face red. "Dad, stop." "I'm almost done," I said. "Everyone deserves to know the truth before they celebrate this relationship as an example of family values." The final slide showed the cropped photo, my mother's last birthday, with me erased from the frame. This was taken at my mother's final birthday celebration. I was removed from the image before it was shared publicly. My mother, who raised me alone, who taught me about dignity and respect, was reduced to a joke about outdated grief. Silence fell across the hall. Lena was crying, but they weren't sympathetic tears. They were tears of someone caught, exposed, undeniable. As of today, all financial support has been permanently terminated. Legal documentation of these decisions has been filed with my attorney. I'm sharing this publicly because you all deserve to know what kind of family you're celebrating tonight. I disconnected my phone from the display. The screens went dark. Happy birthday, Lena. I walked off the stage, through the stunned silence, through the crowd of people holding their recording phones. Behind me, chaos erupted. Victor shouting, Lena sobbing, guests talking over each other in shocked disbelief. I kept walking, through the doors, into the parking lot, into my truck with my mother's rosary swinging from the mirror. My phone exploded with notifications before I even left the parking lot. Videos were already being uploaded, shared, spreading through social networks like wildfire. Text messages poured in from family members who'd been at the party, from ones who were seeing it online, from people I hadn't spoken to in years. I turned the phone to silent and drove home. The house was quiet when I got back, but my phone screen was a solid wall of notifications. I set it face down on the kitchen counter, the same counter where this had all started with Lena's forgotten phone. Outside, a car pulled up. Then another. Victor's voice carried through the front window, angry and desperate. Dad, open the door. We need to talk. I sat in my mother's chair and waited. The doorbell rang. Knocked. Rang again. Victor's voice rose to shouting. You humiliated us, in front of everyone. What were you thinking? What was I thinking? I was thinking about my mother's face cropped from photos, about being called background noise, about 3 years of being treated like a convenient tool rather than a human being. The pounding on the door continued. Lena's voice joined Victor's, high and panicked. Please! People are posting videos everywhere! My career is ruined! You have to fix this! I didn't move. After 20 minutes, they left. The house fell silent again. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the messages. Some were supportive, distant relatives who'd always sensed something wrong, co-workers who'd heard my story secondhand. Others were angry, Lena's friends, people invested in the perfect image she'd cultivated. But the videos were spreading. Every major family member had shared it. People were taking sides, arguing in comment sections, dissecting every screenshot I'd shown. The truth was out there now, documented and undeniable. A message came through from Nora. Well executed. Expect legal threats, but they have no grounds. All evidence is yours. All actions were legal. Call me Monday. I set the phone down and looked at the photo of my mother on the mantel. She smiled back at me, that gentle, knowing expression she'd had when she knew I was struggling with something difficult. I did it, Mom, I said to the empty room. I made them see. The notifications kept coming, but I turned the phone completely off. Tomorrow there would be consequences to manage, relationships to navigate, family members demanding explanations. But tonight, sitting in my mother's chair in my quiet house, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. They'd treated my grief as weakness, my silence as submission, my help as obligation. They'd documented their cruelty themselves, never imagining I'd see it, never imagining I'd have the strength to expose it. But I had, and now everyone knew. I stood up and walked to the spare bedroom, to the boxes of my mother's things that Lena had wanted me to throw away. Inside were decades of love. Photos, letters, memories of a woman who'd taught me that dignity wasn't about being loud, it was about knowing your worth. I pulled out the letter she'd written me about grief, the one about loving deeply. I'd carry it with me now, proof that what they'd mocked was actually my greatest strength. My phone, even powered off, seemed to pulse with the weight of what I'd done. videos spreading, messages multiplying, the careful image Victor and Lena had built crumbling in real time. They'd wanted a celebration of their perfect family, their perfect life. I'd given them truth instead. And unlike their filtered photos and cropped images, truth couldn't be edited away. By Monday morning, the situation had evolved beyond anything I'd anticipated. My phone stayed off all weekend, but when I finally powered it on at 6 a.m., the sheer volume of notifications crashed the messaging app twice. 347 unread messages, 62 voicemails. The family group chat had exploded with over 1,000 messages, some defending me, others attacking, most just shocked. Lena had left the group. So had Victor. But they'd created a new chat without me, and someone had added me back to screenshot what they were saying. Victor's message stood out. He planned this for months. He manipulated everyone. This is abuse. I sent the screenshot to Nora. At work, Caleb met me in the parking lot before I could even reach the building. "You're famous," he said. "Or infamous, depending on who you ask." I did what I had to do. I know. And for what it's worth, half the plant is on your side. The other half thinks you went too far. He walked with me toward the entrance. HR wants to see you. Just a heads up. The HR meeting was brief. They'd received calls from Victor claiming I was unstable, from Lena's friends demanding I be fired for harassment. But Nora had prepared me for this. I had documentation of everything, proof that my actions were outside of work and based on factual evidence. "We can't discipline you for personal family matters," the HR director said carefully. "But we hope this won't impact your work performance." "It won't," I said. Back at my desk, I found a handwritten note from the plant manager. "Keep your head up, some fights are worth having." The day stretched long, filled with whispers and sideways glances, but the work remained the same: specifications to review, quality reports to approve, systems to maintain. I was good at my job. That hadn't changed. At lunch, I finally listened to the voicemails. Most were from extended family members, trying to understand what happened. A few were from Victor's friends, angry and accusatory. One was from Lena's mother, her voice shaking. "How could you do this to my daughter on her birthday? You're a cruel, bitter old man." I deleted them all except one, from my late wife's sister, whom I rarely heard from. "Damon, I'm sorry. I should have paid more attention. Your mother deserved better, and so do you." That one I saved. The afternoon brought another complication. Victor showed up at the plant, demanding to see me. Security called my desk. I walked down to the lobby where he waited, face haggard, eyes red from what might have been crying or might have been anger. "3 years, Dad," he said when he saw me. 3 years I've been trying to include you in our lives, and this is how you repay me?" Include me? The words came out sharper than I intended. "You cropped me out of photos, called me background noise, mocked my grief over your grandmother. Those were private conversations. Private mockery is still mockery, Victor, and you documented it all yourselves." He stepped closer, voice dropping to something raw and desperate. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Lena's business is tanking. Her clients are canceling. People are calling her cruel, heartless. Our friends won't talk to us. Maybe you should have thought about that before spending months treating me like I didn't matter. We never meant—" He stopped, ran his hands through his hair. "You took everything out of context. Those messages, they were just venting. Everyone vents about family. Venting doesn't involve systematic mockery of someone's deceased mother. It doesn't involve planning to use someone for free childcare while calling them zero personality." The security guard shifted uncomfortably. Victor noticed, lowered his voice further. "Please, Dad, can't we fix this? Take down the posts, apologize, say it was a misunderstanding?" "It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the truth. People are threatening us online, saying horrible things. Lena can't leave the apartment without someone recognizing her." "That must be hard," I said, my tone flat. "Being seen for who you really are." His face crumpled. For a moment, I saw the boy he'd been, the son I'd raised, the child who used to believe I hung the moon. Then it hardened again, turning to something cold. "You're going to regret this," he said. "When you're alone and no one wants anything to do with you, you'll realize you destroyed your only family." "I had a family," I said quietly. "A mother who loved me, a wife who respected me. You're not my only family. You're just the ones who forgot what family means." He left without another word. I watched him go, watched him slam his car door and peel out of the parking lot. The security guard looked at me with something like sympathy. "Family's complicated," he said. "It shouldn't be." That evening, Nora called with updates. Lena's attorney contacted me. They're threatening to sue for defamation, emotional distress, and damage to reputation. Can they? They can try. But truth is an absolute defense against defamation, and you have screenshots proving every claim. The emotional distress argument falls apart when we show their own messages mocking your grief. As for reputation damage, they damaged their own reputation by their actions. You just made it public. So we're safe? Legally, yes. Socially? She paused. That's harder to predict. Some people will always think you went too far. Others will applaud you. The question is whether you can live with the division you've created. I thought about my mother's chair, about the peace I'd felt sitting there after the revelation. I can live with it. Good, because it's going to get worse before it gets better. She was right. Over the next week, the story spread beyond family circles. Local news picked it up. Man exposes family's mockery at birthday party, with blurred screenshots and interviews with party guests. Social media turned it into a debate about elder respect, family boundaries, and public shaming. People I'd never met had opinions about my choices. Strangers sent me friend requests to tell me I was either a hero or a monster. The plant started getting calls from reporters wanting comments. Through it all, I kept working, kept living, kept sitting in my mother's chair each evening, feeling her presence in the quiet spaces of my house. Victor tried twice more to contact me, once through a family mediator, once through a lawyer's letter demanding I cease harassment and defamation. Both times, Nora handled it with clinical efficiency. "They're desperate," she said. "Lena's wellness business collapsed. 3 major clients dropped her, citing misalignment of values. Victor's facing questions at his own job about his judgment and character." "I didn't want to destroy their careers," I said. "You didn't. Their own actions did. You just made those actions visible." But the nights were harder than I admitted. Sitting alone in a house that used to host Sunday dinners, looking at photos of a family that no longer existed in any meaningful way. I'd won the battle, exposed the truth, protected my dignity, honored my mother's memory. But victory tasted like silence and empty rooms. The screenshots stayed archived, backed up, documented. They'd done their job. Standing in my kitchen, the same one where Lena's forgotten phone had started everything, I realized the house no longer felt empty. It felt calm. The notifications stopped. The videos faded. Attention moved on, as it always does. But the truth remained. Documented, undeniable, permanent. They thought I was too quiet to notice, too old-fashioned to respond, too broken by grief to confront them. They documented their cruelty themselves, never imagining I'd see it, never imagining I'd have the will to reveal it. But I did. And when the moment came, microphone in hand, screens ready, phones recording, I delivered the truth without theatrics, no shouting, no emotion, just facts and evidence. The folder on my phone remained secure. I didn't need to open it again. The truth had already done its work. I closed my eyes and let the peace settle. The battle was over. The truth was out. I hadn't won by revenge, though their image had collapsed. I hadn't won by destruction. I won by refusing to stay silent, by choosing dignity over comfort, by honoring my mother's memory with truth instead of letting it be mocked in private. The forgotten phone was the beginning, the birthday party was the climax. And this, standing alone in my quiet kitchen with nothing left to prove, was the victory. They treated me like background noise. I showed them how loud the truth could be.